As fall approaches, the evenings may actually start to cool down enough that you might want to use some of the produce that you've been eating pretty much cold all summer in a warmer style. And so what I've got today is vegetable stew, which is going to take a variety of vegetables that are coming out of the garden right now, cook them down a little bit to a stew that you can either eat hot as soon as it's done, you can cook it earlier in the day and eat it at room temperature, you can eat it cold, but it gives you a good variety, and it also uses up a lot of things that may start to be tailing off or that you may have more than you want. So the first thing we're going to do is add about 1 tablespoon of olive oil or other oil to the pan, and to that I have 1 regular medium yellow onion that I've sliced. We'll put that in the pan, and 3 cloves of garlic that have been minced. Put those in there, and then let those cook just enough to begin to soften up and to saute a bit. We're just going to soften it up a little bit. You don't really want it to turn brown at this point. Now we're going to add a pound of yellow squash that you've cubed, or any other summer squash. Remember, you can substitute one summer squash for another. We're also adding a pound of zucchini that's been cubed up here. I'm just going to stir those together just a smidgen. We're also going to add 2 medium tomatoes. Now, if your tomatoes are really ripe, then you probably should peel them, because the peel is going to start to fall off and it's going to look a little bit ragged. But if your tomatoes are still fairly firm, just getting to the stages of starting to turn ripe, then whether you peel them or not, it is up to you how much time you want to dedicate to it. Last thing that I'm going to add in there is about 3/4 of a pound of green beans. If you have fresh green beans, that's fine, use those. If you have frozen green beans, those work equally well. And you can just guesstimate on amounts, because this is a stew. You don't have to get out a scale and measure them. Just a couple of cups of zucchini, a couple of cups of yellow squash, a couple of tomatoes, and about, if you've got frozen green beans, a couple of cups of those. And then we're just going to put a lid on this. There's no seasoning that we're adding to it other than the wonderful flavors that are coming out of these vegetables themselves. We're going to put a lid on this, let it simmer at a fairly low temperature for about 15 minutes. Okay, after about 15 minutes, you notice you've lost a little bit of that great color, but these have all tenderized now and the flavors have melted together, and it's just a wonderful aroma that comes off here. To this, we're going to add about 1 1/4 cups, 1 1/2 cups of corn kernels. These can again be fresh kernels that you've cut off the cob, or they can use frozen. You could also use canned, so whatever is convenient for you to use, whatever you happen to have. I've got about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. You could adjust for taste, and up to about a teaspoon of salt is going to go in here as well. Stir those together, and now it's simply a matter basically of heating it through. So depending on what kind of corn you're using, if you're using frozen corn and it has to thaw, it's going to take a little bit longer than if you use canned. If you use fresh, it's just going to take a couple of minutes. But no matter what type you're using, it should be ready within about 4 minutes. So again, stir that together just a bit. This is actually could be served as a main course, or you could use it as a side dish for a main, and so the number of servings you're going to get is dependent on what you do with it. If you're going to use it for a main course, you might want to serve it with some crusty bread or some cornbread to absorb some of the liquid that comes off. It's not real soupy like you would often associate with the word stew, but it's very, very good, and for this time of year it makes a great lunch or even a nice Sunday dinner. Once that's heated through, notice the gorgeous color that you get here, and if you use this as a side dish, you could probably get at least 8 servings off of here. And even if you took only 1/8 of this recipe and that was all you got from it, you're still going to get 40% of your vitamin C for the day, and only 275 milligrams of sodium if you use the full teaspoon of salt, which is easy enough to rectify if that's too much for you by simply cutting back on the amount of that. If you wanted to, you could add some other herbs to this. But this flavor in this particular stew, it's something that you just need to use this once in a while, simply so that you get that full respect for all the flavors that these individual vegetables can give to a dish. A little bit of parsley just to decorate it up a little bit, and you have a recipe made primarily from things that you can grow in your garden here in Oklahoma at this time of year that is just wonderful. I hope you'll give this one a try. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.